Welcome back to the channel, folks. I'm Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today we're going to be reviewing book number 2 in Gavriel Kay's Fayanavar Tapestry, The Wandering Fire. If you watched my review of book number 1, The Summer Tree, you know, for some reason, I've collected the little mass market paperbacks of each book, trade paperbacks of each book, and hardcovers of each book. I have 3 versions of each book in this trilogy, and I don't know why. I just collect books. I collect all sorts of books, different versions of books that I love. That's why I do the channel, you know. I want to get people jazzed about books. I want to get people buying 3 different versions of all their favorite novels, just like I do. I also have the audible.com narrations. Things are spiraling out of control in my life, folks. Spiraling out of control. Anyway, let's get to The Wandering Fire, book number 2 of the Fayanavar Tapestry. As we know in book number 1, starts out in our own world in Toronto, Canada. 5 people, 5 college students. Kimberly Ford, Kevin Lane, Jennifer Lowell, Dave Martinyuk, and Paul Schaefer. They get swept off into a fantasy world. Magically swept off out of our world into a fantasy world. Oh my God. As you know, I mention it in every video, the production values of these videos are magnificent. There hasn't been one video of the 200 videos I've filmed where something hasn't fallen down. It's unbelievable. Anyway, let me recuperate. Okay. These guys, these college students, they get swept from Toronto, Canada, into the Fayanavar Tapestry, into the world of Fayanavar. They find out that there's multiple units, it's a multi-universe. It's like string theory. There's a multi-universe out there, and there's all sorts of worlds. Earth, Fayanavar, thousands of them. And Fayanavar is the central world that holds them all together, and there's a dark lord there that's going to just screw everything up for everybody. So they have to go into this Fayanavar and save the world in book number 1. And, you know, it ends up being a trilogy, so it takes them 3 books to see if they can save the multi-universes, right? Well, the first book, I mean, this is, Gavriel Kay is such a great writer. You know, he got his writing chops by helping Christopher Tolkien edit the Silmarillion. So a lot of these books, especially the Fayanavar Tapestry, I mean, Gavriel Kay's books are written exquisitely, with great language, great prose. Specifically, this first trilogy he wrote really comes off as Lord of the Rings rich in its folklore, in its world building, in the word usages, in the sentence structure, and just how everything is constructed. It's almost the closest thing to reading Lord of the Rings that you're ever going to read. Maybe with the exception of Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson. But anyway, the Fayanavar Tapestry is very Lord of the Rings-ish, but it's much darker. And it's got people from Toronto, Canada kind of wandering through the, you know, Middle Earth, as it were, which would be cool. Wouldn't it be cool to be swept off into Middle Earth and have to, you know, do all the stuff that, you know, we could actually cosplay as ourselves in Middle Earth? Or whatever. That's kind of what we're doing here with the Fayanavar Tapestry and these college students. In book 2, like I said, book 1's very dark, ends very dark on a very dark note. Book 2 starts out very dark. I mean, we're introduced to orphans and a lot of tough choices that these characters have to make. Stuff that's happened in book 1 in their first go round into, because what happens in book 1 is they go to the fantasy world, they do a lot of stuff, then they get swept back to Toronto. They start in Toronto in book 2, they get swept back into the fantasy world, right? Well, we get to see a lot more of them in their own world, not only just in Toronto, but they go to England, to Stonehenge. It's very pagan and a lot of witchcraft. The magic is dark and dirty and grim. It's not like high fantasy magic that you're going to find in like the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. I mean, this is like grim, dirty, dark magic, but it's got kind of a high magic feel to it, but more on a pagan, just sort of witchcraft level, where things are just, I mean, the magic isn't good. It's not nice. It's not nice at all. And there's a lot of hard questions that are, a lot of hard decisions that our characters have to make right at the get-go of this book. And some of those decisions are made in England around Stonehenge. Like I said, it's like very Druids. There's Druid. I mean, it's got a lot of this sort of, not only does Fëanor itself, our fantasy land, have a rich historical lore, but we find out that our own Earth's historical lores tie into Fëanor's historical lores, in so much as that we've got like King Arthur and King Uther and Lancelot and a lot of the Knights of the Round Table stuff kind of back and forth between the worlds. You know, it's like the recruiting ancient figures from our own Earth's past to help fight the battles in Fëanor. And that's kind of like the thing is, I mean, and winter is coming. Winter is coming. Believe it or not, that line is the first sentence in this book. Winter is coming. We've heard that before, right? A guy Gavriel came up with it like 15 years before George R.R. Martin came up with it. Very first line in this book, winter is coming. I read that and I was like, oh, because I hadn't read these since I was a lot younger. I read the, oh, winter is coming. I'm like, wait, that's like an iconic line from a whole nother story. Guy Gavriel came up with the first. What can you say? Anyway, that's the basic plot of the story. I mean, it's very just well written. It's super well written. Does the story always go in directions that I want? No. Do I like the characters as much as some other books? No. Do I think Guy Gavriel Kay is one of the greatest writers on the planet? Absolutely yes. Probably one of my top 5 writers, just as far as skill level goes, I've ever read. And I think that the skill is exhibited a lot more in some of his other stuff, like The Lions of Al-Rassan, or The Song for Arbonne, or Tigana, or any of the other ones. These were his first books he wrote. These are the first books that he wrote coming off of editing the Silmarillion. And it kind of shows. He's a new author, a young author. I think he's feeling his way. But even Guy Gavriel Kay feeling his way through a story is still 10 times better than most of what all of us other fantasy authors are doing. So I mean, this guy's already out of the gate at a high level. So I give book 2, though I did not like it as much as book 1, I give book 2 about an 8 out of 10. The Wandering Fire, the Fëanor Tapestry. And so I'll be reading book 3, you know, down the road here, and we'll get a review up for it too.